to like kick him, and then she was able to come down with the pin and go right in his eye, and it went right through to his brain, so it killed him instantly. So then she needs some clothes, so she did have to take his shirt off, even though it had his blood and his guts on it. Ugh, oh my gosh. She had to like put that on so she had something when she went, you know, when she left out. So she goes down, gets to the elevator, gets to the bottom, and she took his gun as well, which was, you know, smart. And she's like, she doesn't speak the language, so she's like auto dos, and like she's just trying to get them to understand she needs a car. And they were laughing, and I was like, oh, they probably know someone's already coming to kill the girl or something, you know. So then she whips that gun out, and then they got her a car. So she hits it, and she's going, and thankfully that guy, you know, had some money in the car, so she was able to stop off at the gas station. She looks bad because, you know, God's punched her in her face and everything, so she looks pretty rough. And so she pays for the gas, and then the attendant asks her, he's like, bad boyfriend? And she says, yeah, bad boyfriend. And he's like, oh, that's no good, you know. And she says, you should see him. And he's like, oh, good, you got him. So then he tells her where to go. You know, she's like, well, how do I get out of here? And he tells her. And so she follows those directions. And there was enough money in the car that she was able to buy like a flip phone. So she calls Kiri. The phone's ringing, and then finally Harris answers. Harris is like, where are you? And she says, I don't know. I think I'm somewhere in San Paulo. And he's like, okay, just keep going east. He's like, go all the way to the beach. He was like, I'm coming to get you. He was like, I'll be there, you know, in about 12 hours. He's like, but I'm coming. He was like, just kind of go there. He's like, get there and, you know, stay out of the way as much as possible. And she's like, okay, all right. And it was cute because you kind of heard in their voices, like, he was so happy to hear her and she was so happy to hear him. And so she's like, all right, well, I got to get off the phone. And she jumped off the phone because she felt herself about to say like something that was so non-Layla, which would have been emotional. So she's like, let me get off the phone. Because she has just been through like a massive ordeal. She just killed a man. Okay. So she, you know, and this hasn't even been dealt with yet. So she's like, I gotta get off this phone. She's like, I gotta keep my minutes. So she gets off the phone and she heads towards the beach, and she almost makes it there, but the car conks out. So she has to walk the little rest of the way, which isn't terribly long. She found a little dive restaurant-ish type of a place. She only had like a few coins left, and so she put them on the table because she doesn't speak the language. So she, you know, was like, this is all I have. And the lady kind of understood, and so she went back, she brought her some water, and then she brought her like this massive plate of food, and she ate it up. And then of course she got sleepy, and she thought she just laid her head down for a moment, but she actually fell asleep. And then when she was awakened because she heard a woman scream, and she was like, oh shoot, she knew like they're here. And she was like, dang, how did they find me? You know. So she knows at this point her only option is to kind of steal a vehicle. So she was able to steal one of their trucks because they were outside of the truck trying to find her. So she jumps in and she guns it. And so she calls Harris, and they're like shooting at her, like they've shot out her back window, and they're still shooting through the vehicle, like shooting at her. And she calls him, and she's like, and he's like, what's happening? She's like, they're after me, like they're shooting at me. And he's like, I'm coming for you. And so he tells her where the lanes merge. When you get there, go hide in those woods and just wait for me. And she's like, okay. So she did that, got to the lanes where they merge, and then she got out and she jumped and she went in the woods. And then of course the guys in the trucks get out because they see her, and they've got machine guns, and they were coming for her. And so she called Harris, and he's like, when I count to 3, I want you to run south as fast as you can. And she's like, okay, well, where are you? He said, don't worry about it. Just run south as fast as you can. So he counted to 3. She had to take off, and she ran. And as she ran, he was coming with the SUV that he had, and he had the door open because she's going to have to jump in because he can't stop. So she jumps in, and then, of course, they have to, he had to give her a gun. And so they're shooting and everything. And so he's like, well, actually, she was the one to make the comment. And Layla's like, we're going to have to ambush them. Otherwise, they're just going to keep coming, He's like, all right, I'm going to figure out a plan. So he turns off, because they knew, like, on the main, like, on the highway, like, they're not going to really do anything there. So he pulled off, and he went to, like, a warehouse junkyard type of a place. And they waited. And so he had given her a gun, and they took him out. They killed all of them. And then they were headed to the safe house. And while they're in the truck, she puts her hand down, like, in the middle, like on the middle console. And then, like, his hand magically is on top of hers. And then she looks over, and she can see that he has, like, a heart on. And he's like, it's just the adrenaline. It's just the adrenaline from what we just went through. That's all it is. So you can tell, like, he's trying to convince himself as well, like, that there's nothing happening here. But clearly this has already happened. So they get to the safe house, and it was on. Like, the guy Thresh, well, before that, the guy Thresh, which is one of the guys on his detail security team, he was like, this house will be good for about 70 hours, and then you guys, by that time I should have a plane for us to get up out of here. Leaves, of course, that sexual tension is just at a whole 110. And so he kind of looks at her, and he's like, he grabs her, and he's like, tell me to stop. Tell me to stop. And she was like, she couldn't, because this is what she wanted. So they had, like, the most intense session. And it was like, for her, she's like, yeah, she's had people, like, go down on her and things like that. But this was like, just like this connection, like, she felt it, and it freaked her out, because she knew she felt love for this man, like, it was in there. And she never really allowed herself to feel that way for people. Like, Kiri's the only person she's loved. And that's a friend, But, like, really letting a guy in, like, she just doesn't do that. And then she finds herself just automatically just feeling that. And it's very overwhelming for her. She tries not to admit to it. At first he does too, but he feels it. And then he tries to make her say it. And he's like, tell me what you feel. And she just shut down, because she couldn't deal with that. But he wanted her to say it. And I think for his sake as well, because it's like, he knows, you feel like, I ain't crazy. Like, I know these deep emotions are happening here. And so she wouldn't admit to it. And so he left her in the room. And when he left out that room, Layla cried like a full-blown baby. Like, that woman, she didn't cry when her mother died, her brother died, stepfather, nothing. But that made her cry. And he let her cry. She was in there for a good hour. And he let her get it all out. And she just told him, she's like, yes, I feel it, but I'm scared. Like, I've never felt that way about someone, and I'm terrified. Like, I need you, and I never need anyone, but I need you. If I don't have you, like, I'll lose it, And so it was a beautiful moment. It made me so happy for them to, like, have that beautiful moment together. It was just beautiful. So they, of course, had sex again. And then, like, the next morning, she was trying to, like, this is what really threw it. Because that morning, he wanted to have sex again, but she didn't want to, because she knew if they had that eye connection again, everything was just gonna come full, just flowing out of her. So she wanted to just like give him a blowjob, so that way we didn't have to go through that. So it half worked, but he knew what she was doing, and so he stopped her, and then she got mad. It was funny. So they go to sleep when they wake up, well, actually it was like the middle of the night, and there was a sound, and of course Harris heard it. And at first Layla thought he was just like waking up being horny, and he's like, shut the F up, like, no, that's not, somebody's here. So he goes out, and he's butt naked, and he goes out, and he killed all those guys that were trying to infiltrate. So then he's like, we gotta go now. So she jumps in the shower, and she was trying to get some, and he was like, no, we ain't got time, we gotta go, like, this is life or death, we gotta go. He's like, I know you don't like to listen to me, but right now I need you to listen to me, you gotta go, we gotta go. So they leave, and then of course while they're leaving, like, the guys are coming, but thankfully, like, Thresh was like right there at the tarmac. He had a hole, and I think what he had was a real machine gun. So they were safe. So they went to Miami, and they were gonna get her some more clothes. And he was like, she wanted to have like a real date, and he was like, cool, we'll do that. And so they went, and she got all this expensive stuff at the mall, and they went back to a nice, it was a decent hotel. They couldn't do too nice because they are trying to stay off the radar. So they had like a nice little, go to a decent, hotel, had a great night. And then the next morning, like, she didn't want to leave. She's like, I don't want to go. And he's like, but baby, we got to go. She's like, but I just don't want to, So they leave out of the hotel, and Vitaly's walking right towards them, and he's aiming for Layla, and good old Harris jumps right in front and takes that bullet for her. I was like, nah, God dang it, that's love. That's just some straight up love. So he goes down, but before he goes down though, like, he's shooting at Vitaly, because he sees him, so he's shooting him. So he shot him like a good 4 or 5 times in the chest, but they don't know if he's dead yet. They're like, because the ambulance came and took him, so he's not necessarily dead, and that dude has to die. So they're in the hospital, and then Roth and Kiri come in, and they see Layla like right by his bedside and saying baby, and they're like looking like, wait a minute, what the hell did we miss? And Harris is like, this our business, like, doesn't concern you guys. But of course, Kiri is so happy that they're together, because that's what the end result she wanted anyway. So then Thresh comes in, and he's like, Vitaly's not dead, but we know where he is. He's in the hospital. We know what hospital, And so he's like, okay. And Roth is in the room as well. And Roth is like, well, whoever takes him out, I'll give you, whatever you ask for, I'll give it to you. And the guy, Alexei, was like, okay, $1 million. He was like, I'll give you 2. He's like, okay, done. So they, not too long later, they bring back like proof that, like, he took video and everything of where he had injected his IV with something so that it would look like kind of like he had like a heart attack or something like that. But he stayed there and made sure that dude was dead, and he caused a disturbance in like another hospital room so that way it would take the people even longer to get there to make sure he was dead. So Vitaly is officially gone. So they were kind of worried, like, okay, well, is someone else going to rise up? And he's like, no, because there's no one else. They're going to try and fight for power and stuff like that, but